Second edition of Ethiopian Great Run colorfully here in Addis Ababa today. President Sahle-Work Zewde says a paradigm shift of diplomacy is vital to secure national interest. Good evening to you all. A very warm welcome to ETV News. I'm Grum Tariku. The Great Ethiopian Run International 10 km is a flagship event held every year since 2001. The race has become the lifestyle of many here in Ethiopia and even abroad. Winners of the 22nd edition of the Ethiopian Great Run said the competition enhances their professional excellence in the athletics field. The 22nd Ethiopian Great Run is held here in the capital Addis Ababa, where the African Union headquarters is based, with over 40,000 participants and 300 elite athletes. Habtam Shagre has attended the event and filed the following account.
The competition was hard. After my recent injury, this is my first road race. I try to take and manage the race based on my mood. That helps me to secure vital win in the competition. This is my third win in the competition. The Great Ethiopian Run laid foundation in my running career.
I have completed in 10,000 meters now, but I have been a contender in 1,500 meters. I'm very excited and pleased by securing the first place in the competition. The Great Ethiopian Run helps me to be qualified athlete in the near future.
Every part of the competition is quite impressive. Everyone sings a song and encourages us to finish the race. The Great Ethiopian Run has something special. At every kilometer in the race, the crowd clapped and praises us to finish the competition, which I like the most.
The Great Ethiopian Run International 10 km is a grand event held every year since 2001. Started with 45,000 participants, the race has become the biggest outdoor race in Africa. The race attracts participants of all abilities from all over the world. Many international visitors come to run in the race as part of the longer trip to Ethiopia, staying on to visit some of Ethiopia's historical sites and national parks. Talking to ETV, athlete Haile Gebrselassie, founder of Great Ethiopian Run, said everyone should play their part in order to implement the peace agreement between the federal government and TPLF. Sarisa has more on this.
Haile Gebrselassie, Ethiopia's most famous long-distance runner, is the founder of this Great Ethiopian Run in 2001 and won the initial race. Each year, Haile is at the center of proceedings, creating and meeting many international participants, hosting an array of famous international athletes attending the race and awarding prizes. This race has also become a vehicle for publicizing important social messages. The race has been an unforgettable experience, celebrated as one of the liveliest and most colorful races in the world. It is Ethiopia's biggest street party, with tens of thousands of Ethiopians running, walking, and dancing their way along the route, led by Ethiopia's celebrated international runners. President Sahle-Work Zewde and other senior government officials presided on the 22nd Ethiopian Great Run. Talking to ETV, athlete Haile Gebrselassie, founder of the Great Ethiopian Run, said that everyone should play their part in order to implement the peace agreement reached between the federal government and the TPLF in Pretoria, South Africa.
The peace agreement that has been reached lately should be fully implemented to ensure lasting peace in our country. Our children in war-ravaged areas should go to school. My heart breaks when I think children out of school in Amhara, Tigray and Afar regions. Children have the right to access education.
Haile further said that hosting the Great Run in Addis speaks volumes about the potential of the city and how peaceful and safe the city is.
Over 40,000 participants finished the race without any security problems. This shows how the city is peaceful, which some might be misinformed about the city. The peaceful conclusion of the race is a showcase that Ethiopia has the capacity to host such international competitions.
Diplomats residing in Addis Ababa and 40,000 participants across the city were part of this great run. Some diplomats who took part in the race recognized and received medals. Some international runners come for the weekend to share experience in Addis Ababa, visit the market, traditional restaurants and music venues, enjoying the buzz of one of Africa's fastest growing capital city.
President Sahle-Work Zewde remarked a lot more needs to be done in strengthening regional integration and Africanism for Ethiopia's foreign diplomacy to flourish and get deep-rooted. The new Ethiopian foreign diplomacy directions are making adjustments based on the internal, regional and international scenarios. Present at the African Leadership Excellence Academy in Sululta, former President of Ethiopia Dr. Mulatu Teshome and the current president have shared their experiences to emerging diplomats of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Daniel Kasaun has more on this.
The current Ethiopian President Sahle-Work Zewde and former President Mulatu Teshome have shared their professional life experiences with the diplomats who are enrolled in the African Leadership Excellence Academy over the weekend. Demeke Mekonnen, the Deputy Prime Minister and former Minister of Ethiopia, who moderated the session, indicated the training that the diplomats have been undertaking thus far is the first round of its kind, paving the way to build the institution on a foundation of merit and competence.
Based on
the responsibilities of the Foreign Ministry, it is so vital to aggressively building the capacity of the middle-level professionals so as to realize the reform program of the institution. This is the first part of the training for prospective diplomats. We have recruited around 65 persons to strengthen our diplomatic strides.
President at the African Leadership Excellence Academy, President Sahle-Work Zewde, remarked a lot more needs to be done in strengthening regional integration and Africanism for Ethiopia's foreign diplomacy to flourish and get deep-rooted.
We Ethiopians have to be more zealous to our Africanism. Our diplomacy gets deep-rooted if we engage more on our Africanism. We need to win more respect in Africa. If we do so, we can take Ethiopia to the expected level. We also need to strengthen our regional integration, diplomacy, bilateral and multilateral relations have to be cultivated very well.
The former President of Ethiopia, Dr. Mulatu Teshome, for his part indicated adequate interest and preparedness are key factors for effectively accomplishing the career in diplomacy.
Diplomat ለመሆን ፍላጎት ብቻ ሳይሆን ራሴንም በደንብ ነው ያዘ
Apart from the interest, I have also made adequate preparations for the diplomatic responsibility. You have to be equipped with the necessary diplomatic tools to run the job effectively. The very important thing is the keenness to serve your country. You have to bear in mind that patriotism is a key factor for running diplomatic missions successfully.
The new Ethiopian foreign diplomacy directions are making adjustments based on the internal, regional, and international scenarios.
Minister of Defense reaffirmed the government's determination to implement the peace agreement signed between the Ethiopian government and TPLF in Nairobi and Pretoria. Defense Minister Abraham Belai underlined that the delegation who participated in the peace process on behalf of the government has made a great contribution to the completion of the peace process in a manner that respects the sovereignty and national interest of Ethiopia. Shagai Matau has more on this from Ethiopian News Agency.
Expressing the government's commitment to the effective implementation and sustainability of the peace agreement signed between the Ethiopian government and the TPLF, the Minister of Defense Abraham Belai pointed out that there are conflict traders who work to disrupt the implementation of the agreement. The minister urged peace spoilers to refrain from their acts.
I would like to reaffirm that the Ethiopian government is determined to implement the peace agreement. I also need to warn conflict traders who are working tirelessly to disrupt the peace deal.
Ethiopian National Defense Force Chief of Staff Field Marshal Branu Jila on his part stated that the Defense Force is a heroic army that loves its country and puts peace first. He also indicated that the peace agreement reached in South Africa and Kenya was concluded in a manner that respects the territorial integrity of Ethiopia.
መከላከያ ሰራዊታችን ክብር የሚገባው ይቺን አገር በዚህ 4 ዓመት ውስጥ
Our defense force made sacrifice to defend the sovereignty of the country, particularly for the past 4 years. Hence, our gallant army deserves great respect. Our negotiators, diplomats, especially those who participated in South Africa, Pretoria, agreed in a manner that respects the sovereignty of the country. Therefore, I would like to thank them as they are hero of the negotiation.
Peace Alternative Committee member Ambassador Hassan Abdulkadir said for his part that Ethiopia remains a peace-loving country and the government has demonstrated this position repeatedly.
We are proud on you for keeping the sovereignty of the country and for your support.
Minister of Defense has recognized the participants of the peace agreement reached in Pretoria, South Africa and Nairobi, Kenya, representing the government.
Minister of Culture Kajela Merdasa said that Ethiopia and Russia have fertile ground to boost their ties in the fields of arts and culture. The minister welcomed a Russian folk ensemble which comprises a quintet of soloists and merited artist Olisie Vestingniva. In his welcoming speech, Kajela Merdasa said the relationship between Ethiopia and Russia surpassed centuries. The long-standing relationship between the two countries is based on social, economic, religious, and cultural and diplomatic relations, he added. Russia stood with Ethiopia during the Battle of Adwa in 1896 against the invading force of Italy, and it was one of the only 5 countries which opposed the Italian occupation of Ethiopia in 1935. The ties between the government and people of Russia, regardless of regime changes in Ethiopia, has remained intact, he said. Currently, there is a visible cooperation between the two countries in the fields of technology, culture, science, and education. Kajala highlighted Russia and Ethiopia are poised to foster their mutual cooperation in the areas of art and culture, and such events are instrumental in enhancing cultural relations and people-to-people ties between the two countries. The concert, which was organized in commemoration of the Russian National Day, is aimed at boosting people-to-people relations and cultural ties between Africa and Russia. Evengi Terkehin, ambassador of Russia to Ethiopia, stated. Ethiopian ambassador to Benelux and EU institutions, Hirut Zemene, accompanied by diplomats of the mission, has met with officials of the government of Luxembourg and discussed about bilateral cooperation. In her meeting with Ms. Veronika Dokendorf, Director of Political Affairs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Luxembourg, Ambassador Hirut briefed her about peace agreement reached in South Africa between the government of Ethiopia and TPLF. She explained the readiness of the government of Ethiopia to work with all international partners on the implementation of the peace agreement. The two sides also discussed about latest updates on the status of the bilateral cooperation between Ethiopia and Luxembourg. The program also included a visit to the Ministry of Development, Cooperation and Humanitarian Affairs, the Ministry of Culture, House of Training and Chamber of Commerce. During the meeting with Christoph Shields, Director of Development Cooperation, the ambassador commended Luxembourg government for its humanitarian assistance to conflict-affected areas in northern Ethiopia. During a visit, the Ministry of Culture, the discussion was held to explore how the two countries' cultural institutions have much to gain from enhanced cooperation. The meeting at the Training House of Luxembourg was quite useful in exploring further possibilities of expanding the existing cooperation in the areas of capacity building in banking sector in Ethiopia. Ethiopia and Luxembourg enjoy a long-standing bilateral cooperation that's close to a century. And finally, the 22nd FIFA World Cup opened on Sunday with a match between host Qatar and Ecuador at El Bati Stadium. In the opening match, Ecuador beats Qatar 2-0. Ecuador, 1.2 million people are expected to descend on the Middle East nation. The tournament was originally set to begin a day later with Senegalese game against the Netherlands at Al Toumams Stadium, but Qatar's match was moved forward in August to allow them to open their home tournament. Africa is represented by Cameroon, Senegal, Tunisia, Ghana, and Morocco. England will play on the second day with they take Iran. Gareth Southgate's team will be the finishing group on the B, with games against USA on Friday, November 25, and versus Wales on Tuesday, November 29, following Wales' progression via the playoff. The knockout stage begins on Saturday, December 3. The final will be played at the Lusail Stadium in Doha a week before Christmas on Sunday, December 18. Over now to a quick reminder of the headlines. Ethiopia holds the 22nd edition of Ethiopian Great Run Color Free here in Addis Ababa today. President Sahle-Work Zewde says